Hey YouTube universe, today I'll be giving my thoughts on this grandiose, beautiful book, East of Eden. It is uncharacteristic of me to read a book that is over 500 pages long, but reading this book flew by way too quickly. I wish it was 1,000 pages long. I wanted to linger with the Trask family and the Hamilton family for many more generations, actually. That being said, with being serious, I'm completely happy with the resolution and the structure of the book itself. I just was enamored by his ability to follow generations of characters, especially in the Trask family, and describing how traits that have been passed down, whether they be evil or goodness, ultimately serve to uplift the characters or even further their own sense of wretchedness. That even being the good traits. Sometimes goodness gets these characters into trouble and doesn't allow them to prosper and be their best version of themselves. And to give a brief summary of the structure of the book itself, it follows mainly the narrative of the Trask family through the brothers it's based on Cain and Abel from the book of Genesis, but the brothers Caleb and Aaron, who are the sons of a father in the Trask family, who I can't really say who is the father, because that may spoil things, but there's a lot of complications in their family, and there is some family tensions and jealousy that is a constant theme throughout the novel. And the fact that Steinbeck is able to really have it feel like a real family whilst making it entertaining and drawing complicated themes throughout each generation is awe-inspiring. I believe John Steinbeck himself said and quoted that he put everything that he learned about life into this book through the characters, interactions, and moments. You can see that that is the case. You have philosophical thinkers and conversationalists like Lee and Sam Hamilton who instill wisdom and curiosity throughout the pages. That brings me to another point that I loved about the book, which is the characters and their depth. People like Lee and Samuel Hamilton have the most engaging dialogue about life, philosophy, and the world around them. They touch on things like invention and, if man is destined to be bad from the get-go or if he has a say in the matter. It's a constant theme that is being revisited, which is the evilness of man, and if that is something innate or developed through time. Particularly the phrase Timshel, which I'm not pronouncing right, definitely not pronouncing right, but translates to thou mayest. And this is a theme that I found very compelling throughout the book, which Lee brought up in a conversation with Sam Hamilton and Adam, which is that in a certain translation of the Bible, it's not thou mayest commit a sin. It's not thou shall not sin or thou dare not sin or anything along that lines, but thou may not sin, leaving it up to us to have the choice. And this is something that I tried to grapple with and think about as the many characters we're exposed to grapple with their own indulgences and evil, or some of them with their own good and how that gets into the way. Is it something we can control? Or is it something that is completely outside of our own will? And it's an epic saga following, also, in addition to the Trask, the Hamilton family and their Samuel Hamilton's many sons and daughters, and briefly touches on their lives and what's going on there. But overall, there's such notable moments. too many to even count, but I will read one passage and one moment that stuck with me, which was a classic moment with Lee instilling some wisdom when he's with Samuel Hamilton and having a in-depth discussion. And that is my favorite part of the book. Those moments where you're getting intimate and vulnerable conversations, which happen quite frequently along the entirety of the book. But here's just one example of that. Will relaxed a little in his chair. He was a great old talker. Somehow he made a man better than he was, said Adam. Lee looked up from his darning egg. Perhaps the best conversationalist in the world is the man who helps others to talk. That was just a very brief exchange, and points that are so philosophical and touching that spoke to me personally. Just lingering on that one point Lee made about conversationalists inspiring others to talk. There's something deeply warm and compassionate being expressed by that, and I, for one, am a very avid believer in the fact that conversation should be appealing to both parties' interests and insights. And a true conversationalist and master of speech will appeal to that person's interests. And it's always something I want to get better at. So that is something that resonated with me. And just those little moments of wisdom throughout are really poignant. And just in terms of Samuel Hamilton's character, in describing him, and that's another thing, the descriptions of the Salamis Valley and the West in all of its nature and various, geological components are just so well written. And Samuel Hamilton's introduction as being this eccentric talker and, charismatic man who has compassion goes like this. It says, man coming to his blacksmith shop to talk and listen dropped their cursing for a while, not from any kind of restraint, but automatically, as though this were not place for it. Samuel kept always a foreignness. Perhaps it was the cadence of his speech, and this had the effect of making men, and women too, tell him things they would not tell to relatives or close friends. His slight strangeness set him apart and made him safe as a repository. That companion you can always go to, whether you're close to him or not. You know that he will take your words seriously and want to get to know you. And Samuel Hamilton in this book kind of takes that mystique of the compassionate and wise man. Overall, a wonderful read. Highly recommend it if you got a decent amount of time in your hands. It's definitely a long read, but a well-worthy one at that. And books that appeal to, deeper philosophical thought and our orientation in regards to our character and why we are the way we are always of deep interest to me. And this one did a really good job at touching on those themes. Did you read East of Eden? What were your thoughts on it? And I'd love to know if you could leave a comment or anything like that. And peace and love.